Off the Wall Productions is proud to present Voices of the Methow. This is a series of conversations with interesting folk in and around the valley.
So this is Byron, and I have Laura Love here with me. Nice to see you, Laura.
Well, nice to see you, Byron.
Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, my pleasure.
So you and Terry have a new CD out. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Let's start with the title.
Well, yeah, the title is She Loved Red, and I've dedicated it to the memory of my sister, my beautiful sister, Lisa Winston, and this CD is dedicated to her memory. She and I were 13 months apart, and she killed herself in March of 2017, and so it's about 10 months ago, and I just can't even imagine being in a world without Lisa.
Yeah.
But she did. She loved red, and so as you can see, a lot of things in this house are red. This beanbag chair here, you're sitting on her couch, and there's so I've sort of inherited a lot of her possessions, and she did love red. And I find that sort of ironic because with Lisa, her whole life was defined by color. We are both black. We have the same mother and father, same African-American mother and father, yet she was several shades darker than I am. And so her reality, even though we lived in the same home, was very different from my own. And she suffered the cruelty of racism. I mean, she was born in 1958. I was born in 1960. And so in Nebraska, racism was alive and well, and just as it is now. There's been sort of a resurgence, but her life was so much defined by the color of her skin and the kinkiness of her hair. And every day I realize more and more how much more suffering she did than I.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Well, that's a really sweet picture on the cover here of the CD.
Yeah, well, there we are. It's about 1977. We had our great big afros.
Yeah.
And, my mom had a big afro too, and so we would walk down the street in Lincoln, Nebraska, and stop traffic. Our hair was so big, and when we go to a movie, the three of us would sit in a row together, and the whole row behind us would get up and leave because they couldn't see through our hair. It was so common. You'd hear some whispering and sometimes some grumbling, sometimes some laughter, and then behind us they'd leave.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've got my own thing with hair. I mean, I used to have long hair back in the late '60s, and it was so easy to freak people out, with at that time.
Yeah.
People. I feel sorry for the kids today that in a sense they have to work so much harder,
to freak people out.
Freak people out. Yeah.
Well, they're stepping up though.
Yeah, that's for
stepping
sure.
up.
Well, this is pretty cool. You've got. I see some good tunes on here. I Still Believe, and I'm looking forward to hearing this. I got to say, you've just handed me the CD, so I haven't even had a chance to hear this yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of all over the map. There are, I think, three central themes on the CD. The first is I'm sort of building on my political activism over the years, and so I do We Shall Overcome.
Yeah, good.
And I've added a verse because I just felt so bad about the direction our country is going in and about this hostility towards immigrants. And so one of the verses is, give me your poor, your tired, give me your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free one day. So, there's that, and then there's Trouble So Hard, and let's see. I do a song about, it's called It's the Water, about having visited Standing Rock last Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving before. And so just talking about the importance of keeping it clean and avoiding the pitfalls of putting fossil fuels and oils and pipeline all around the water and fracking and those things. So that's the first theme, I think, or one of the themes, one of the three. And when I first started writing this record, I was just coming out of a 2-year deep depression, and that depression was caused by I was assaulted. 2.5, 3, almost 3 years ago, I guess now, and it, I was physically assaulted, and my face was beaten up, and I was beaten, and it just threw me into a tailspin that I just couldn't get out of. I just couldn't get out of bed. I just was so depressed and unable to believe that someone just could, beat another person and hit their flesh and just without mercy. I and so I was originally writing songs about that and just trying to recover. And as a matter of fact, Terry Hunt and the Family Dog really did help me recover from that. If I hadn't had them to, go to rehearsals and do these local gigs and have this community around me that has bathed me in love, and I'm so grateful to be here. That and my kitties. My kitties are those were the things that kept me going and keep me going. So the album was primarily going to be focused around that. And I hadn't put out a record in about 10 years, and I felt like I felt like I'd said everything I really needed to say in the world, and I just wanted to hunker down and just be here in the Methow and not really tour or travel anymore. And one of the consequences, one of the results of having been assaulted like that is I just wasn't able to work, and I got pretty deeply in debt, and which I still am, but I'm just trying to kind of crawl out. And so I knew I had to put out a record, and I knew I had to start touring again. And I also wanted to just talk a little bit about how it all felt, And so it's funny because the writing about the assault itself and just recovering from that, there are a couple of ways to sort of respond. There's, revenge, wanting revenge, being angry, being bitter, and which, I certainly went through that. But I also felt bad when I entertained those notions and came to realize that the only response is forgiveness and love. And otherwise, if you think you're depressed before you start entertaining thoughts of vengeance, then you really get depressed then. And so it's just sort of realizing we have to forgive, and we have to keep believing that people are more good than bad, and we have to try to be our best selves despite it all. And so I wrote I Still Believe about that.
Oh, man, I love that tune.
Oh, thank you. And then, and then they have another song called Et tu, Brute, about just feeling betrayal. And
right on. Yeah, I got that. I see it on the title.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, so those were going to be sort of the overarching themes. Were going to be, my political stuff, activism, and recovering from, sort of a crisis, and then pain and loss and, betrayal. But then my sister killed herself, and it just knocked the crap out of me. And I felt like I had just put my toe in the water of being invested in living, and thinking maybe I could be could smile again and really feel happiness. And then that happened. It's been really, really hard. Life without Lisa. I've never lived in a world without Lisa. And every day I was, even, I'm 58 now, but I'm the same age as Lisa now. She was always older, She died at 58, and
Right.
and so and just realizing every day how much cruelty she endured and how much racism, and in our own family, the racism that we had. I mean, our mother just hated the darkness of her skin and just hated, and and at the time, she enrolled me in hating Lisa's skin and hair, and she would tell me that she and I had good hair, and she would just,
that's a double whammy.
It was
there
just
too.
horrible,
Yeah.
and I think, my mother was mentally ill, and so there was that challenge, but there was just this particular kind of viciousness that came down on Lisa that was just reserved for her. And when my mom stopped kicking her, she just kicked herself, and she just never got clever. I felt like I learned how to lie and be clever and sneak, and she was guileless and just filled with love. And so she had a lifetime just marked by cruelty, racism. She was bullied in her workplace. She worked at the state prison, at the Monroe State Prison, and there were some, it's a real kind of a military culture. And here's my precious sister Lisa. I say precious little, she always just let me be the oldest. And so even though she is, the oldest, she just always let me just.
Well, I could kind of relate to that. My brother's 2 years younger, and he was kind of this similar what you were talking about having some survival skills or whatever, and a strong will. And a person,
And you just, she just gave it up to me and just let me. And I abused that privilege, and I abused my power there. And I was just starting to realize how much I had, sort of been enrolled in being unkind to her. And it just became our pattern. My mother would just pit us against each other. And then if we would quarrel or have some kind of a, an argument, or then Mom would get angry, and she would set up so many of those.
Well, those family dynamics are hard to get out of.
Yeah.
You mean eventually you can maybe work. Hopefully, you can.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the songs that you've written, and there is that redeeming, redeeming quality that we can at least hope for.
Yeah. Well, and I just was just starting to take responsibility for my own participation in her suffering. And I remember my mom would when we would fight or something, my mom would just, she would stop it, and she would say that we were driving her insane, and she would make us hug each other. And she would just make us hug each other for, sometimes like, a minute or 2 or 3 minutes at a time.
That's a long time when you.
Yeah, and it made me so I felt like physically repulsed by the feel of embracing my sister. And I mean, in my adult life, I still did. And, or my mom would make us hold hands or kiss your sister and hug her. And so I could never do those things. And as an adult, without just feeling, this revulsion. And I was just feeling like I was getting over that. And, and I the last year of her life, I felt like I had so many breakthroughs where I was able to say, I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm so sorry for how I hurt you and took advantage of you and your kindness. And the only thing that's made this bearable for me was that the last thing I said to her, her daughter was expecting her first child in 10 days. And we were all looking so forward to it. And Lisa was so excited about her daughter having this baby. And I just remember saying to Lisa that I hoped that the whole family would find Winthrop to be a good place to have our family gatherings, and that I really wanted to be a family and just try to just love each other and have this be our sort of our home base. And the last thing I said, well, I told her I was sorry for all the horrible things I'd said, just mimicking my mother and also stuff that I generated that was awful. And then I said to her that I hugged her and I just held her and I said, I love you, Lisa. And so that's one of the few things that I've been able to take from that, and that's helped me to live through this, is just that I did at some point tell her I was sorry and that I love her.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we've talked a bit, in a previous conversation about this, and how Terry Hunt, came in and at the good time, and
really good time,
and the family dog. Yeah, and
he was so. I just needed in this community. I've lived a lot of places, and I've traveled all over the world, but there's a specialness about this community that I've never experienced in my entire life, and where people, for the most part, really sincerely care about you, even people whose religious and political views are diametrically opposed to your own. People, they will really just give you the shirt off their back, and they help you. It makes me a better person because I, like when it snows, I go out into my neighborhood and I said, say who needs a plow, and they do the same for me. And it's just, there's a real, genuine, almost palpable love in this community that it's more than just physical necessity, we live in a challenging environment and all that, but it's also just a sincere love for the other that I think pervades here that I have never seen or experienced. I lived in Seattle for 30 years, I can't remember. But, and I had so many people in my life that I just loved and treasured, and, and the political scene and the cultural scene in Seattle is great. But when it kind of became this unrecognizable city with, this horrible traffic and millionaires everywhere, and lots of lots of gentrification and those things, when it kind of became unrecognizable to me, although it has retained its liberal bent. But this community isn't just liberal on paper. Like, even the rednecks are liberal here in some ways. In that they, not all of them certainly, but there are some, there are people here that call themselves rednecks that would not drive by you, even if you had Hillary stickers all over or whatever, or Bernie stickers. They would still help you pull yourself out of a ditch. So, when I see somebody, we were just in the Women's March in Omak, and, it was just, and I saw a couple of trucks go by, and but for the most part, it was just this love fest between the Okanagan Valley and the Methow Valley, and the tribes were there, and so many women were there, and men, and there were just a few really, really negative people, and I just thought there's one truck that just kept going by, and it had these big coal stacks, sort of flipping off the environmentalists, sort of, and they were just racing up and down the street, and they screaming "No DACA," and I just thought, it's funny because I could be driving home and they could have a flat tire, or they could need somebody to give them some gas or something like that, and I would do it, and I would do it, and I thought, and maybe they would do that for me, and so I think that's the specialness of this area that I'm so glad I landed here. So glad I landed here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And how cool that not only did Terry give you a hand getting back up and getting up to speed with with the music, but now you're partners.
Yep.
And gee, I see that you produced this CD. You and Terry produced this CD, and you've got your own label, right?
I got my own label, and which I've always had, but I even was running my label while I was on, like Mercury Records and, Koch Records and Putumayo. So I've always, and Rounder, Zoe. And so I've maintained that, but this is the first thing I've released in many, many, many years under Octoroon Biography, which is my label. And it's been great. I like, it's great to be independent again. And it's great to have this new management. This Jim Fleming, our manager, is just fantastic. And
Jim Fleming Agency, that's doing your booking right now.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Well, I looked around the Fleming Artists website, and you're in some pretty good company. Holly Neer, Judy Collins, Jeff Daniels, Tom Paxton, Cheryl Wheeler, to name a few, and Laura Love and Terry Hunt. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's from all this awfulness and ugliness, there have been some really nice things that have happened, and one of those things was hooking up with the Fleming Agency. He's a great guy. He's honest. He's realistic. He's just, I really enjoy working with him.
Oh, right on.
Yep.
So I see by your website, lauralovemusic.com, that you're going to be busy playing music and covering some ground here.
Yeah.
Looks like you're going to be in Bellingham. Now, this is like January 28th right now.
Right.
But so by February 10th, you're going to be in Bellingham. And then West Seattle for a CD release party, the 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Santa Cruz on the 14th of February.
Going to swing down to California. And then we're going to, I think probably in April, we'll probably go to the Southwest, Albuquerque, Taos, Santa Fe.
Oh, nice.
Maybe Telluride. Probably do some shows there. And then this summer, we're going to be in Boston and
I'm seeing the New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on the 7th of July.
Yep. So we're doing an East Coast swing, and
that's great.
So they're just adding dates, for us, and it's been really fun for me to really learn the part of the business that I was sorely unaware of, and it's like advancing the tours. I'm really sort of leaning into that now, and figuring out how to do a tour budget, figuring out how to manage my website, and it's like, so I get up and I do that in the daytime and try to figure out how to get people out to the shows, and that's been kind of fun. It's really, it just feels like I'm in charge of my own destiny, and so. And I'm learning a lot of stuff on the computer that I never knew before, and it's good.
Yeah. You made a mention to me the other day when we were talking about getting together that this is kind of like planning a wedding or something.
It is.
It's like
a CD release. Oh my gosh, because when I was on a major label and minor labels, I mean they'll send out 2,000 CDs to radio stations and take out ads and all kinds of stuff, and I don't have the budget to do that. So what I do is I try to look at where I am going to tour or where I want to tour, and so and I sort of look at the radio stations that have played me for 25, 30 years, and then I contact them and remind them that I'm not dead, and tell them, I've been off the scene for about 10 years, and the response has been just so great. I mean, they've just been great. They're like, Laura, what you doing? And they don't say we thought you were dead, but it's kind of nice that they thought I was dead, because now I'm like Lazarus coming back.
Well, isn't it kind of cool, to have that support?
It is.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of concentrating, on the East Coast and the West Coast, and trying to get the East Coast dates done in the summertime before the snow, and the West Coast dates, we can sort of do all year long. And then the Midwest, although I am from Nebraska, I haven't Chicago, Wisconsin, maybe those cities, or those those cities and the Illinois states. I just got a little tiny presence there, and I kind of need to increase that. But otherwise, I'm really enjoying learning the business part of it. It's fun.
That's cool. Yeah. and what about now? You were mentioning something about Facebook that you're doing a lot on Facebook as far as promo and.
Well, it's so funny because I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I just had, maybe had 300 or 400 Facebook friends, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand what Facebook was all about, and it's actually, it's probably been 5 years ago I started to kind of think there might be something to this Facebook thing, and that was really because of the Occupy movement, and there were so many young people in the movement, and they were so completely hooked up with social media, and social media really facilitated the Occupy movement and is facilitating the resistance now. So that's when I first started getting active on social media, was during the Occupy movement. And, my manager at the time would say, Laura, it'd be really great if you put the time in trying to develop your career like the way that you do talking about your political beliefs. And I had no interest in using Facebook for music at all. I just wanted to get out on the streets and foment the revolution. And so it's just so funny because like in 5 or 6 years, really not doing much anything around the music, I'd gotten up to 5,000 Facebook friends, and we're just engaging in these political conversations about the Occupy movement. We could see that we were getting a bad deal, and corporations had basically taken over the country. Corporations and very wealthy, mostly white men had taken over the United States, and corporations, and that the middle class was disappearing, and political action committees and K Street lobbyists were making policy, making law, writing the laws. The police overreach was certainly not lost on me with my black relatives, and so those were the things I was really interested in talking about on Facebook. And then sometimes people go, well, yeah, Laura, but where are you playing? And it was like, oh, I don't know, It's like, you're going to record? I don't know, And then, people would say, well, and my manager would say, maybe sometimes you should talk a little bit about your music. So I do that a little bit, and I realize, oh my gosh, people really respond. And I really respond. I mean, I'm just on that. It's like, it's kind of addicting. It does kind of suck the time out of the clock, but I want to. It's like, oh my God, so-and-so got a new puppy, oh, look, their little puppy has a little, a rainbow flag, and, and then, but I'm also connecting with people about their music, and I'm talking a lot more about my music and things I've got going on. And really, social media was what enabled this album to happen. Terry suggested I do a GoFundMe campaign, and I was like, I don't think I can do it. And so he kind of coached me through it, and I got it together, and then I put it up on my Facebook page. And that's really, this album was brought to you by Facebook and GoFundMe and the good people who've put their money where their hearts are.
Right on. Yeah.
And I thank the people for that. This community has given me so much.
So and how could people support you? I mean, like, can you were talking about the GoFundMe, but also what about your music? Is there?
Oh yeah. Well, in the next few weeks, it should be up on iTunes. And there's my cat jumping on your papers
on
there.
My favorite.
Freddie.
Hey, Freddie. Nice cat.
Federal Express, Federson. Freddie Roosevelt.
Well, I'm taking a compliment because when we first met, this cat wasn't quite sure about me.
Yeah, well, he's definitely turned the corner on that. But yeah, people can just, come to the shows, buy the records. We had a fantastic show last night where it was a midwinter dance at the community center.
Oh, that's the Twist Community Center. Yeah,
I mean, it's been the top 20 shows of my entire life. It was so fun to have everybody come out and dance and everything. And so I had a locals price. Usually I sell my CDs for $20, and they help to fund our tours and everything. And but I had a locals price of $10, and people just bought them, and people bought the book. And I have a book out about Occupy. And
I didn't know that. So yeah.
Oh yeah. It's called Nights in Tents. Tents, TENTS. Yeah. So it's a little play on word, a double entendre. But so yeah, go to Amazon to get the book, Nights Intense, and iTunes and CD Baby have my records, and that's really the thing that keeps me going, financially. So
right on. Yeah. So
trying to crawl back. So yeah, and I have a GoFundMe page, GoFundMe Laura Love Sad Songs, and people have been contributing to that. And even though that we have the record out, I still have debts for the studio, and I would love to be able to. My initial order was the smallest I could get, which was 300 CDs, and I would love to, order more CDs so that I can,
more CDs,
get to more radio stations. And for giveaways to radio stations are expensive, because they cost you for the product and the postage and all that. But I would really love to be able to get it out to areas that I would like for Terry and I to play.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the GoFundMe, how's that work?
You just get on the GoFundMe site.
Okay.
And then you do a search for Laura Love.
Yep.
And it was Laura Love Sad Songs Campaign.
Okay.
I was going to call the record Sad Songs, and Terry Hunt, actually it's Terry Hunt's kids, Galen and Molly said, you might want to lean on our toe. That's not really the very best idea, is call the record Sad Songs.
Yeah, well, she loved Red. Nice job.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything in particular that's juicing you right now? I mean, do you have any particular musical sense of direction heading into the new year?
I like that, juicing me. What's juicing me right now is getting out and connecting with people again. It's been a long time since I've been on the road, and I don't generally like touring, because for the hour or two, that you get on stage, there's the other, 20 some hours where you're in planes, trains, automobiles, you're in traffic, stopped in traffic, and you're trying to stay well, you're trying not to get sick and keep my voice in shape and stuff like that. So I find that it's touring is very difficult, but I have a new zeal for it for a number of reasons. One is I want to get these songs out and talk about just marginalized people, how important it is to reach out to people who are meek and who aren't maybe the A-list, or who are maybe not confident, or that have a lot of self-worth issues. It's important to reach out to those people and tell them every day how important they are and how beautiful they are, and to help build their confidence and let them know they have allies in the world. So there's that. And also, I want to put a message of kindness out there. I really love combining club dates and theaters, soft theater theaters, club dates and festivals with house concerts. I think that house concerts are the revolution. I think they are a huge form of the resistance, because we're able to gather with people of all stripes, not just like-minded people, because just because they like your music doesn't mean necessarily they are on board with your politics. And so we get, most of the people are on board with my political leanings, but some people just like the music, or they might pick out like Amazing Grace or some of the religious spirituals that I've recorded, and then be surprised by my political views. And so house concerts let you establish a dialogue with people of all stripes in these communities all across the country and the world. There's house concerts all over the world, and it's just fantastic. It's just such a way to connect with communities, and often, and it also really it helps with expenses on a tour, because a lot of times you'll get your they'll put you up in their houses, and
right.
You get to meet their families and stuff. And so it's just a huge part of the resistance. There'll be times when neighbors will say, oh gosh, I didn't know you were a fan of this or that or the other, or I never knew that you were liberal, or and they'll start having these conversations that they never knew before, and of each other's the similarities, and so I hope house concerts continue to grow the way they've been growing. They kind of remind me of like the speakeasies or something during the Prohibition, except the focus is music, rather than getting drunk.
Yeah.
It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference.
Well, Laura, is there anything that we've missed or that you'd like to add?
Oh, just that I love KTRT. That's one of the there are so many things that are the glue in this community, and I think KTRT is the glue in this community because, I always loved it and Don and and the programming, your programming. I love that, but my God, the things that we derive out of having this precious asset, this brilliant, this gem in our community. And I've always loved it, but during the fires of the last few years, it has hit me that this is something unlike. People don't just get to have a KTRT and their communities, and so many of these indie radio stations, and KTRT is a commercial radio station, but it sort of operates, it seems like, from my listener perspective, a lot like independent radio or NPR stations, right, or Pacifica stations. It looks and sounds a lot like that in a lot of ways, and I want to thank KTRT for having been so good to me personally and just to this community generally.
Well, thanks for mentioning
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's wishing you
take your time, son, because I know it's going to be good.
Here's wishing you, Terry, and the family dog all the best.
Thank you so much. And Nancy Zahn was with us last night too, and she was killing it. Nancy was on. Nancy's on.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing the gift of your voice, music, and spirit with us.
Thank you.
And is there something that you'd like to take us out with?
Yeah. I don't think I could ever get through this on stage, but I'll try to do a little bit of She Loved Red. Just, it took me 3 tries, I think, to get in the studio to be able to get through this song, because I just was crying and crying, but I'm going to try to do a little bit for Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my Lisa, she loved red. She let me be the oldest. She let me be the loudest. She let me suck the air out of the room. She loved red. Oh, come and go with me. I'll take you where their mouths can't hurt you, Lisa. Come and go with me. I got a spare room that's just right for ya, Lisa. I'll pop some corn and we can sing no diggity. My God, you weren't in the way. Lisa, you weren't in the way. You were the way. You were the way. Oh, my Lisa. She loved red. For Lisa.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you.
She loved red.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. She's smiling.
I hope she is.
Yeah.
Lisa. It's kind of like having your own guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this, Byron.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. This is Byron, and this has been an off-the-wall production of Voices of the Methow. Thanks for listening.